Yeah, I used to muck around at school. Back when I was at school, girls weren't playing rugby union. So this, but they'd play league, touch mainly, touch footy. So I used to do a bit of that. And I was big into cricket. So I think the reality is I'm a bit of a sports person. I love my sports, and I used to play baseball as well, like for years eight through to 10 at school. My girlfriend and I were part of the boys' baseball team because we were bored with softball and we wanted to play baseball. Much more fun. You hit the ball a lot more further. And so I don't know. And then I was part of the inaugural cricket team as well, women's cricket team. And so I just loved sports, and my dad is a massive union fan. And so the opportunity to get out there and represent help look after the Wallabies was just too good to give up. So I jumped at it. Yeah. And it's interesting. I was actually only speaking with a very senior lady in the industry yesterday, and she was asking me around, how do we get more women out of university to participate in the real estate, or go into university with real estate in mind, or participate then once they come out of university in the property industry, because it has been seen as it's sort of viewed still as male dominated from the outside looking in. And we don't have many female CEOs, so that doesn't help, because a lot of the time the CEOs are the spokespeople in the industry, and so if the spokespeople are constantly not seen as females, and sort of why would a female be attracted into going into that industry? And it's caused me to reflect a lot, because I think I was attracted to it because it was male dominated. Because I love the sports and all that sort of stuff. I used to get invited to bucks parties when I was, with my really good male friends when I was younger. So it was kind of funny reflection to make personally. And what it made me do is actually then look out also when I was entering into the real estate field, why a lot of the women that did real estate then chose to go into more a different side of the industry that wasn't at the commercial side, wasn't at the deal side, the agency side, the valuation side, why that was that. And I actually look back and go, they didn't really. The women that I went through university with took roles that meant that I'm not really in the industry with them anymore. And I've done a lot of self-reflection on that. I think that has changed a lot, but we've still got a long way to go. Until we have women presented in the senior leadership in a more obvious way, I think there's a big deterrent there for women to be attracted into the sector if they can't see a future for themselves. So we've got a lot of work to do, I think, still. Yeah. Yeah, look, for me, and that actually goes to everyone, male and female as well, and it's the mentors and the sponsors, because having people around you that can help you navigate your career, can help you navigate the challenges that are coming up, and have a range of male and female. So make sure if you're female, you get those other female sponsors who can share with you, and mentors that can share with you, their experience. As a more senior female, I'm often, get phone called people saying, look, I want to have more female candidates in this opportunity that I'm looking for. Who can you recommend? So I'm getting asked for who I know, the up and coming females in the industry that I can put forward for opportunities. So that's me playing sponsor. But as mentor, I think also for me, be able to share with young women how I navigated some of those things, or maybe help them identify what's holding them back, I think is very helpful, because often someone external can really help you see that a lot more clearly and give you the confidence to step up. And, because there is a bit of you don't want to group everyone into the same bucket, but having done a lot of research into this space in the past on behalf of the industry, on industry bodies, there is a tendency for women to sort of often say, well, I want to make sure that I'm good at every aspect of this and I'm proven before I take the next step. Whereas often, again, maybe categorizing a bit unfairly, or men can sort of go, well, I've got enough of that down pat. I want to move on and I can do this next bit, even though I haven't done it all before. They're a bit more confident in their ability to step out there and put themselves out there. And I'd say to the young women, just do that. Put yourself out there. You'll learn, get amongst it, and that helps you move forward as well. Yeah, so the gap was even bigger. I was 14 at Lendlease, and then I was away for 12
Wow.
with 2 different jobs. So I was 14 at Lendlease, 5 at Dexter, 6 at Investor, and then I sort of had my breaks in between for forced gardening leave. So it added up to about 12 years. And for me, it was, Lendlease always had a really soft spot. I had a really soft spot in my heart. And when I left Lendlease, I left because I had just a better opportunity for me at that time elsewhere in the industry. And it was also a chance to get out and just experience some other firms as well, because Lendlease is sort of up on a pedestal, and it's good to get out there and actually I learned a lot in those 12 years that I wasn't there around dealing with businesses that are smaller, more nimble, less complex. And in that, you can see how you can bring things to effect. And then you go, well, how can I take that back to Lendlease now and help them navigate as a much bigger organisation? So for me, it was a right decision to go. And so when the opportunity came to go back, and what was key for me is that when I was originally there, the investments business was more of a capital provider for the business to do its development activity. Whereas the new CEO coming in was very much wanting to continue to transition the business more and more away from that to being investment-led, an organisation that's basically going, where's the opportunity in the market? Where are our skills? What does capital want? How do we get capital and our skills together to go and grow together, being investment-led and doing it with third-party capital? And that for me was everything I wanted Lendlease to be when I was there originally. So that for me was a key reason for coming back. And I also think Lendlease has an ability to create a unique position for itself globally, because it is such a unique entity when it comes to doing development and construction. And if you can combine that with the ability to be a fund manager, I think it can take a position that actually doesn't really exist there globally. And that's super exciting as well. Yeah, so look, it's fair to say Lendlease has gone overseas and come back multiple times, and not always successfully. So it has learnt some lessons. It did do a big first foray over into the US back in the 90s and lost a lot of money doing it, because there are some jurisdictions where you can't just buy a business and step straight into it if you don't understand how the business works globally, the intricacies around the stakeholder management, relationships with investors and governments and all that sort of stuff. And so a big warning to investors, to companies, that just to go and buy businesses and think that they can just start up from scratch. I think the most success that we've had as a business is where we've gone into a new area and we've started out either very small and unique and not the big bang, and just slowly built the business up, or we've done it in partnership. And if you go into an area in a partnership approach, then you do things together, you work each other out, you leverage their local skills, our global knowledge, and the other things that we bring to the table around how we operate. And that way, I think, is the best way in order to do it. For us, it makes sense because capital is global. So one of the key things that investors are doing at the moment with their strategies, the really, really big investors, is wanting to, invest globally with less managers. So they don't want to go, what they've done in the past is, gone over into the UK and then gone and created themselves 50 relationships with managers, and then gone into Asia and created 40 relationships with the managers. But then when they sit back, they go, oh my goodness, I've got 150 manager relationships that I need to do reports for and send up and try and stay across. What they love to do now is to say, wow, I can actually work with Lendlease and do stuff with you in 5 different countries or 4 different regions. That's super exciting and I think super valuable. So it makes sense for us to be global. In terms of how we allocate our capital, that's tricky, and I think that's where you really need to then respond to the ground up. So real estate for me is very much a top down and a bottom up. Top down from the perspective of what are the key thematics that we're seeing globally, fundamentals, so life science, real supply, shortage of housing, and affordable housing, a desire for high ESG credentials, sustainability. They're sort of your top-down trends, and investors wanting to invest with less managers globally, a real top-down trend. The bottom-up trends that we then focus on is in each market, where are the opportunities? So whilst in the US at the moment, we're sort of saying, actually, we've got a bit of a debt focus there. That's the real opportunity from an investment perspective. Bottom-up is around the debt side, because when you look at the supply-demand fundamentals of office, in some markets are a little bit scary, and the availability of opportunities with the right equity returns is still trying to find its way. Whereas in the UK, where we're focusing there is on value add. There's a lot of undersupply of latest generation office in the heart of London with high ESG credentials. Rents are increasing, demand is there, the tenant demand, the buyer demand, the opportunities are available at the right risk return. So in the UK, we're leaning into that. We're leaning into build to rent, whereas in Australia, we're leaning into industrial, and we're leaning into build to rent. And then in Asia, office is still very much, under supplied from a perspective of investors and also from a vacancy perspective. So we are looking at new office developments in Asia. So that's where you're doing the bottom up. The bottom up is to where the opportunity is, and then the top down around the fundamentals and the capital and where it wants to invest. Yeah, look, resilience gets down into the fundamentals of, I guess, when you're looking at it from a financial perspective, less volatility. And it's understanding what breeds that lower volatility, because with lower volatility often come better risk-adjusted returns. So, we're looking for cities that have really good governance and political systems, are on par with us in terms of what we're looking at in terms of ESG, safety standards, social expectations, importance of the community, that are transparent with regards to their regulation as well, and then have the right opportunities and the right culture in which we can work in. And so, yeah, resilience is a really interesting term, but it's one that for me is more around less or higher risk-adjusted returns ultimately because of the fundamentals of that precinct and of that city. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to take a different take, because in the lecture today, I talked a lot about our developments, and I'm on the investment sides of the business, so they're not ones that I sort of say, well, I worked on that master plan and I did. And so for me, if I think what's something I was really proud of, and I look back, for me it was arriving in the UK, 12 months went by, 18 months, GFC hit. No one was transacting, very similar to sort of the world we've just been in 2023. Transaction levels just plummeted. Values in the UK at the time, because that was the market I was in, plummeted by 30% in 3 months. It was ridiculous. So liquidity dried up, and Lendlease had a lot of infrastructure that it had created in waste facilities, schools, hospitals, the Treasury building in Whitehall, and it had all these assets that it had a 10% equity piece in because it was infrastructure, where we were operating that infrastructure, had an operating business, and that we'd built the schools and the waste facilities and what have you. And it was a massive portfolio, and it had about 300 million of Lendlease equity tied up, and Lendlease needed to get that equity out, and we wanted to retain it as funds under management, yet we were a real estate player, not an infrastructure funds manager. And the team that I was in at the time, we were able to quite quickly just go, we can do this, we can adapt, we know how funds management works, this is just a different asset class, let's map the asset class out, what are the risk items, what are the return items, how do you look at this as an investment? Approach the investors in the market, approach all our real estate investors and ask to speak to their infrastructure colleagues. Got introduced, went and spoke to the infrastructure colleagues, put the opportunity in front of them, and launched a infrastructure fund in the depths of the GFC, because it was the investment that it was a nice, safe investment, basically a government-backed investment, UK government-backed investment, very low risk, but long-term, and it was exactly what the market wanted. And we're able to sell that down into an infrastructure fund when no one else was raising money into real estate. And I was just really proud of the fact that, you know, you were able to take those transferable skills of assessing risk and reward and opportunity, navigating the market and the investors to put together a product that we were able to launch with absolutely zero infrastructure expertise. So, and it was fun. Yeah, I think stick to your strengths. So really understand, you know, if you hate numbers and struggle with cash flows and things like that, and you're in real estate because you love the design and the architecture, don't go and try and become a valuer. So because you're probably not going to perform at the level that you would like to perform, let alone where you need to perform to actually move at the pace you want to be moving through your career. So I guess that whole stick to your strengths piece, I think, is really important. I'm a numbers and an economics kind of person. I can guarantee you I'm not going to start designing buildings. It's not going to be my forte. I'm not creative. So I do think, again, but also stick to the things that you like. Often I find the things that you're talented and strong at, the areas you probably like it as well, because because you're good at it, it feels good, you feel competent, and that way if you're going into a role that is leveraging your strengths, you are much better going to be able to cope with the elements of the role that you don't know and the learnings that you need to learn, because at least you can fall back on your strengths to carry you through, and you can spend time focusing on learning about the parts of your role that you need to focus on. And I think that sets you up well. It sets you up well to move forward. It also means you enjoy what you're doing. And so make sure you try and find out what they are. And if you're a jack of all trades, then you've got the ability to go, well, I'm going to focus the area of my career on the bits that I like doing most, rather than just the bits that you're good at. But I think definitely focus in that direction. And then just be very aware of how, I mentioned this a little bit in the lecture, but just be really aware of how things are evolving around you, how the industry is evolving, how trends are evolving. Because if you go, well, because the things are evolving in this way, I can see that being quite a lucrative part of the industry over the next 5 to 10 years. I'm going in that direction. You're probably also setting yourself up in a way that you can have lots of opportunity. And so I think that's a good way of focusing your growth as well.